Can you tell the difference? These are the same, but different. This is the Ultimate 2, this is the Ultimate, and there are some pretty key differences that make these like pretty starkly different. Let's start at the back, and one of the main key differences you're going to see here is that this switch does Bluetooth and 2.4 gigahertz. This switch does D and X input switching. So same as all the new 2C controllers, you don't have X input option with the Ultimate 2, but you do get Bluetooth now, whereas the old Ultimate didn't have Bluetooth. It was a whole thing when they first launched. It was very confusing. Which one has Bluetooth? How do you get what you need out of the controller? So we've lost X input, but we have gained Bluetooth, which I think is a good compromise. We've got the same really nice slick, actually they sit in the body better now, these triggers. So you'll see in there, that is very much flush with the body, whereas this old one, you can see a bit of a ridge there still. So slightly better paddles. We've got the contacts there for the dock. They both have, I struggle to see the difference between these docks. These docks both have LEDs. When you pop this onto, quickly connect it up to my Neo 2S to show you. Got a little bit of a LED action there. We've got the same on here. Both of these docks have a dongle inside. So if you like dongles, there's a dongle in each of these. What's nice about the difference here is both of these have USB-C at the back going to USB-A with the cable provided. However, this dongle is USB-A, whereas this is a USB-C dongle. So you've got USB-C there. So for instance, my use case, I use the Neo 2S. This only has USB-C input, so I can plug this directly into the Neo and use my controller. So you've got one extra option there. Triggers, another big difference is they've implemented these new fast bumpers, the L4 and R4. So this just has the normal triggers and the normal bumpers. There's quite a few differences here. The triggers on the previous Ultimates have got more tension, which I prefer. This linear motor is a bit softer, a bit squishier, which I just prefer more tension on my trigger. And then big difference, I like soft press, I think it's a membrane button on these bumpers. These are still clicky, but these are sort of, whether they're membranes or not, they're membrane feeling bumpers. These are all clicky now. So for a lot of people, that will be a positive. So you've got these fast bumpers, which are clicky, and these that are clicky. I don't like that. It does feel very direct. I've been playing God of War, testing this, and it does feel very direct in high action scenes, but I just don't like it. It's just something about it. But most people, I think a lot of sort of like hardened FPS, first person shooter people will probably prefer the clickiness. Then a huge difference kind of coming up to a lot of the competitors now is you can switch to a non-linear trigger. So what that means is it's more like for a Switch or whatever. This isn't compatible with Switch, but so we've got a non-linear digital press on these triggers, which is quite nice. I enabled it for God of War, and I actually never switched it off because of the high action kind of game that I was playing. What I did notice, and I do need to mention this, I spoke to the guy who sent this to me, is this trigger, it's getting better the more I use it, but there's something mechanically wrong with it. It kind of fails at times when I put it onto the digital mode. At the linear mode, sort of analog mode, it's fine, but as soon as I put the switch on, it's a bit sketchy. So that is an issue, but what I do like about this sort of product, I mean, we've had quite a bit of drama recently with other devices in the retro gaming space, but this is available on Amazon. So if you have any issues, just send it back. That being said, 8BitDo do have a great track record with quality, and they are kind of quickly becoming one of the favorite third-party controllers on the markets, and they've just got so many options available. The other big difference between these two is that for you've got less colors on this. So I think this one comes in a purple and something else. The 2 only comes in the 3 colors. So that is, If you want colors, it doesn't have the colors. All right, and this is a custom controller by someone on the PCBWay shared projects page. And PCBWay offer such a cool service where you can have cases made. I just ordered a resin 3D print where I've had it painted to match a device, and I'm going to make a video about that in the future. You can have a look at their projects page and find all sorts of weird and wonderful things. Now they do PCBs, like custom PCBs. They do 3D printing. You can do injection molding, but you need to do a big order. So when you actually finally are making a product, let's say you have made your prototype and you actually want to sell it in your country, you can have all that stuff done with them. Their website is super easy to use. Just go on there, create your order, you send it to them. They check if it's working correctly or not. They say to you, yep or no, and then you take it from there. So PCBWay have sponsored today's video. Thank you so much to PCBWay, and also look out for future projects that I will be doing with PCBWay. You'll see this one also has it, but it's got these notches over here. Those are for the clip for your phone. Phone gaming is becoming more and more popular, so that might become more relevant with the 2 for Android phones specifically. This is not iOS compatible. Now the D-pad, there's a big difference with the D-pad. This D-pad is a membrane D-pad. When I first got it, I said, oh, it feels like maybe somewhere between D-pad and a clicky D-pad. I read up that this is a membrane D-pad. This, on the other hand, is clicky, but a soft click, which it's really nice. It heralds to, here I'll use this as an example, it feels very similar to Retroid, if you are familiar with Retroid. It's similar to that, or I'm on an Xbox controller. Let me just get my, okay, the Xbox controller is way more clicky. So this is a bit softer than this is from the Xbox One. This is a bit of a softer click. So yep, still a nice, soft feeling D-pad, but I think maybe they've gotten a lot of feedback that people want slightly more direct inputs, and so they've gone for that with the D-pad. Now, with the joysticks, a big difference here is LED, and I know a lot of people who follow my channel hate LEDs, and they hate the fact that they're arriving on all these devices, and I used to be quite sort of curt with them in the comments, but you know, you've got to accept that if someone doesn't like that thing, that's just the reality. But I don't think they are discontinuing this one, because it obviously has the X inputs, and there are differences to this older one, the Ultimate, and that doesn't have LEDs, so you can always opt for that, and they have so many other cool options. This is one of the retro ones that I have gotten from Acnes. All right, so, and they call this the Fire Ring. Maybe someone named it after having very hot curry the one night. And if I'll show in the B-roll how it kind of follows the movement, it's pretty cool. They've got some cool little features that they've included for the LED, and you change it with one of these buttons. I'm not a big fan of LEDs on my controller for my gaming. For some reason I like it on my handhelds, but I just don't like it on these controllers. So yeah, it is what it is, and you can just make it, you can turn it off, or you can make it some subtle color. You really can manipulate it quite a bit in the app. The other thing, which this is just a preference thing, is that now they've got the sort of V-shaped design because they've introduced some new buttons. They've got the plus and the minus, like the switch plus and minus. They've got the star, but they've now introduced this square. This little button is for, this little piggy is for changing your profiles. And we'll talk a little bit more about profiles later. So the front is different. I prefer this more simple layout. I don't like the V, but that's just a preference thing. Another big thing is the fact that they have, well, it isn't big to me, but I know this can be a big deal to a lot of people. If you have sort of a sensitive tactile issue, this stipple on here, it's very nice and grippy, and it will help in not dropping it. It's more subtle on here. So the thing about this is that these are, it's such a subtle incremental change. It reminds me of Porsche when they were kind of in their heyday, and the new CEO kind of overhauled Porsche and turned them from being almost bankrupt to being very profitable. They made these small changes to things that were working well, and that's what this feels like. The Ultimate was a great controller, but there were small things. It sold well, but there were small things that really bothered people. The fact that the options were so confusing. putting Bluetooth in here now sorts out this sort of crazy options, making a more direct D-pad, making a less of a stipple on the back, introducing the LEDs. I think it's a crowd pleaser. The clicky bumpers, I think all of that is responding to customer feedback, and I think that's what makes companies like this so successful, is making these small changes to something that's already doing well, instead of completely overhauling this, going, people didn't like this, people don't like that. Just focusing on the really critical issues that users, or the most common issues that users were complaining about, and improving on that. I mean, one of the things we all love about this is the unique design. I mean, a controller is a controller, but and I talk about with the Xbox, you've got this sausage design. So you've got this sausage that carries through over here, whereas they've gone for more of this thing is more vertical. It is a bit of a sausage, but it's more compact. And so everyone loves that design. There are some issues to that, and we'll talk about that now. But overall, I'm very happy with the changes that they've made, and I do think this is a better controller overall. If you are looking for X input, that is a downside, and the fact that this is more compatible. This is compatible with Raspberry Pi and a few other things. I'll put it on the screen now, but those compromises have been made to make a more solid offering for you. And then if you do want something that's compatible with Switch, or maybe compatible with your Mac, then they have a different product for you there. But overall, I think it's a good change in the most part. The other big thing is that they have introduced TMR Joysticks. Now, I haven't done extensive testing on them yet, but the science is there in terms of it being a more power-saving thing. Now, I tried to do a battery test. I played God of War for an extended period of time, and there were a few little issues where my timer stopped and all that sort of thing, but I got well over 4 hours of gameplay, just straight up gameplay. I switched it off and on whenever I moved away. So whenever I came to play, switched it on, played, and so I got like way over 4 hours on this, and I don't think you can do that with this. And then plus you've got the stand. And so with the power saving of those TMR joysticks, you definitely are getting better battery life than the outgoing model. I feel like this is a little bit of like marketing, the whole polling rate thing, but I know that this is important to some people that are like need very fast reactions in their gaming. The Ultimate 2 is now 1000 Hertz polling rate, as opposed to, I didn't realize this was 125 Hertz, which is the same as your Xbox. So, it's not the end of the world, and I've literally never noticed it, but you have a much better polling rate on the new Ultimate 2. And they're touting this 8 speed. So like playing on the word of 8BitDo, talking about their connection, the Bluetooth and 2.4 gigahertz connection that they've developed over the years, saying it's very reliable. What I can say is practically using it, having just reviewed the Anbernic one, which was very cheap, the connection issue is non-existent with this. You plug it in and you play, like it just connects. There really isn't ever any issue with the connection on this thing, which is, I don't think there are a lot of controllers that have issues connecting. Actually, that's a lie, because I like the Gully Kit controllers, but they also sometimes are sketchy when connecting them. You've got to, the dongle, press it, whatever. This is very reliable on that regard. So I think the main reasons to buy this are the design, this dock. I've really enjoyed my Ultimate controller, and the main reason is because I can just dock it and put it by my TV, and when I put my Neo 2S on the dock, it's ready for me to use. So that is one of the huge benefits, and it's a very nice design. Like, you put it on, it's just got the subtle LED. I think the design overall is one of the main reasons to go for 8BitDo. It's slightly different to your Xbox controllers or your PlayStation controllers. So it's just a unique, fun little thing. And the other kind of big selling points on this one are these, the fast bumpers and the paddles. They are macro buttons, so you can record macros for any button on the device, or any combination. So for instance, I recorded a macro for my left paddle, PL, and when I press it, my character aims and throws his axe. So you can record those, and those macros record the time that you do it. So let's say, for instance, there needs to be a quick succession. You do the macro quickly and it'll happen. Or if you need to wait for something to happen, press the one button, wait a few seconds, press the next button. That macro will record that time frame that you've created those macros on. So I definitely think, most high-end controllers do that, but it is a reason to buy it. It's very comfy. As I said, the connection is very stable. I know a good polling rate is a big selling point for a lot of people. And then the price, it's $59 for a high-end controller. It's made really well. For that price, I think it's really good value. I quickly want to do a comparison of sort of feeling in hand. Okay, these are very much that these guys have copied Xbox, so bear that in mind when I do this comparison. But we've got a slightly more, sort of your hands are more this way, like inwards. And like I said, Xbox have done this this sausage thing that flares out a lot more than the 8-bit do. As you can see here, it's got a bigger flare and it's a bigger sausage. So definitely these sorts of controllers are better for people with big hands. I really like, I've been converted to this GuliKit style of controller. Not converted, but I really like their controllers. And one of the reasons is the way that it sits in your hand like this. Whereas the 8BitDo has a more compact design. But I must say, when I go back to this is my favorite design. I have medium-sized hands and they really fit in here nicely. I think if you have very large hands, this might not be the controller for you. Definitely go for one of these sorts of controllers. And then the other factor is, like I mentioned, they have reduced the amount of stipple here, like plastic stipple that's grippy. These GuliKit ones have a very strong stipple, and I know that can be an issue for some people, but if you want a lot of grip, this is definitely the way to go. But I've been using this, like I said, I've been gaming for hours on end to try and test the battery, and really like the way this thing feels in the hand. It's not too heavy. In terms of feeling in hand, the 8BitDo still does have my heart. It's the best. I'll put my little polling rate test on the screen now because I tested the polling rates. They definitely are what they say they are, so that's good. And then Dpad test, I must say a lot of these controllers fail, like doing that contra test. So you are going to get ghost inputs on certain platformers and that sort of thing. Street Fighter was really nice. This Dpad was great. I got my Shoryukens and Hodoukens and all this very nicely. So that is good. And that's, for me, Street Fighter is one of the better ways of telling if a Dpad's really good, is if you can get those fluid movements out of it. But yeah, you are going to get a few little ghost inputs here and there with the direction of the Dpad. And then I did a sort of clinical test of the linear motors for the analog triggers, and I did a test of the analog sticks, and that really passed with flying colors. I could get everywhere within the little pockets with the analog sticks. The triggers had a very nice linear motion to them, so no issues there. And then I spoke about the battery life already. I said, I played for over 4 hours. You're going to get a solid, like more than 4 hours on this controller, and then it's obviously got the dock as well. But this does only have a 500 milliamp hour battery. For example, the GuliKit controller has a 950 milliamp hour battery in it. But then their 2C has got a 480 milliamp, so even less battery power on their 2C. So this, coupled with the dock, coupled with the TMR, you're going to get good battery life. And a little tidbits of information. It's always like a concern to me when you charge something and you just don't know when it's charged, or the light just stays on. This light will turn off when your controller is charged. So software, their app is great. You need to, it's like a portable .exe file. So you've got to take that folder, put it somewhere on your computer, maybe in your documents folder, and then remember where that .exe file is and run it from there every time. Obviously with Windows, you can just search for it and it'll open up. So not a huge issue, but it is a bit of like you can't install it. You can't install it from what I can see. The mapping you can do basically to any existing button. So you can map it to any control if you want to have this as, for instance, in God of War, I triggered I made this paddle. I made it so that he lifted his axe and threw it, like he aimed his axe and threw it. But then I hate it when you have to run and you have to press L3. So you have to put your joystick up and then press down. I hate that thing. So I mapped this L4 to the L3, and then I did that when I ran. Just made it like more comfortable for me. So you can use it for little things like that to just make your life a little bit easier with a game that you're going to be playing for an extended period of time. So I'm just testing this device. The Arc has Rocknix on it, and I plugged it in with a 2.4 gigahertz on the on-the-go input. So this is a very specific test. You know, I can't test all my devices, but Linux is going to be more compatible than others. So even though this is an Android and Windows controller, Linux is basically, Android is based on Linux. So you're going to get your mileage may vary. So don't use this review as proof that you can use it on your retro handheld, but I do like to test it on these things. This is in 2.4 gigahertz mode. I haven't tested the Bluetooth, but so are there any deal breakers with this controller? I think people with really large hands might struggle with this device, but other than that, like I mentioned, it is very, very comfy. Obviously, if you want a D-pad up top, this isn't for you. And then not everyone is a fan of LEDs. It is a bit of a polarizing issue. Well, I don't know how big the audience is that doesn't like LEDs, but I know for some people they really feel strongly that they don't like LEDs. And then for me personally, the deal breaker are the clicky shoulder buttons. Like if I found something that felt this good with softer shoulder buttons, I would rather choose that over this controller. I can't make a nice YouTuber categorical statement that this is the best controller on the market, but it definitely is up there in the top 5 or 6.